tech or wireless or broadband. The Aurora Community Technology Foundation was founded for just that purpose. It was a grassroots done by a Mexican immigrant who became a city alderwoman, Juani Garza, and she realized that that was just the problem, that a lot of the children in K to 12 whose native language was Spanish but grew up in an ESL or English as a second language school system didn't necessarily comprehend it, and it wasn't a good indicator of their intelligence. It was simply a matter of translation. And so we started that program Saturday mornings with the commitment of the parent and the child to attend together and learn together. So that transfer of knowledge actually occurred both ways. It helped parents who didn't speak English understand what computers could do, and it helped the children be more comfortable and more fluent when they went back into an English as a second language school system.
I think there is a lot of infrastructure already in your community to address these things, and there's a number of ways to do it. When you talk about low income, I'd like to cite Steve Ronan, who's sitting in the back of the room. He does a lot of work in Boston here in building community technology centers. And these are centers, one of which that I've worked with is the Castle Square Technology Center, which is in the Castle Square housing development in South Boston. These are centers that are designed to sit in the community and spend their time educating and assisting low-income users with how to use these networks. Now that's a great start, is to work with these professionals and sort of, as Ken said, we're inventing this as we go. We're some of the people that are trying to figure this out. When we figure it out, then we can go down to the community technology centers and start to teach some of the other people. The community technology centers, though, were some of the first people to use RoofNet and mesh network software in getting these networks out. They taught me a lot when I was first coming into this. And then once you have the people in the community who are educated, you can diffuse the knowledge into the rest of the community. I mentioned just having pizza nights. It's a great way to bring people together, not even necessarily in low income, but there's a lot of middle and upper income people that still don't understand what we're talking about here. But having kind of community building moments where people who do understand, because it's not just us, there's other people in the community that do understand, can go and work together to do this. Then the other thing that Tony touched on there with the after school session, something I didn't get during my presentation that we found really interesting in Cambridge, is it turns out a desktop computer is shared by an entire family, but if you give a student a laptop, they won't share it with anybody. Yeah. It's very interesting that kids in all families, and if you think about it, I know in my family when I was growing up, but the same is true in low-income families and middle-income families. Kids don't share things that are theirs as readily. So when you give a kid a laptop, you're only solving one out of maybe 5 or 6 people in that family, whereas if you put a desktop computer in there, it's now being shared by 6 people. And some of the programs that seem to be very successful in this are the ones that are the after school or the Saturday morning programs that educate both the parent and the child. Because that's the way you get the kid's the one. In Harlem, we found it was the 18 to 25-year-olds or the 16 to 25-year-olds that really did the definition of the technology need. And they figured out what it was that the family was going to buy and how it was going to be implemented. But of course, it was the dad or mom that paid for it. The 30 to 40-year-olds that actually pulled out the pocketbook. And there's a couple of interesting dynamics with that. That means that you need to educate the kid to drive technology adoption. But the other thing is that you need the parent to be competent with this, because otherwise they go to the kid and say, we're going back to Comcast. Or the kid is scared to go away from Comcast because they don't want dad calling them at the movie theater saying, hey, I can't get my cable to work. Cut your night short with your friends. Come back home and fix it. And that's a profound thing, is how you have the 2 tiers, that you have a generational gap and you have to reach both. But I think that some of the programs that we've cited here have been very successful in doing that so far.
Just to identify resources, where's Steve? Can you raise your hand? Ash was pointing back there. Okay, great. Just want to make sure we're identifying people in the room. If you have additional questions, especially about community centers. There also is a marvelous program in San Francisco called Caminos. Sister Petra runs this center, trains immigrant women, typically coming from South and Central America, no English whatsoever, teaches them productivity applications using Word and other desktop applications, then teaches them how to repair PCs and laptops, and then they become phone support people. So San Francisco's wireless initiative, once hopefully it's up and running, the majority of the community support phone calls will be handled by this community technology center. And every single one of them are immigrant women who are trained in the use and the repair of the technology. So
the one residing theme, if you hear everything that everyone has said so far, is that nobody's trying to boil the ocean. They've localized this and taken it down to a level that they can control and influence those constituents, bring them to the table and teach them one by one. What IBM does is we operate a little bit in the background of this area. We deal with the broader topic of inclusion, and within that construct, we include people that aren't only challenged because of their access to technology, but perhaps by their physical abilities, by their occupationally imposed disabilities,